Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're going all in on Kaapo Kakko.
A player who's been making headlines, and you've given us a ton of material to dig through. It looks like you want the full story.
Yeah, we've got draft day excitement, international wins, but then there's that question. Has he reached his full potential?
That's what we're here to figure out. His trade to Seattle, his upcoming international tournament, we'll look at it all. Try to understand what makes him tick and where his career might be headed.
You've definitely got me hooked already with this trade. But before we jump ahead, let's rewind to the beginning. Kakko comes from Turku, Finland. And let me tell you, that city lives and breathes hockey. Must have had a big impact on him growing up, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't underestimate the influence of where a player comes from. Turku's hockey culture is intense. Imagine being a kid, growing up basically in the shadow of TPS, a legendary Finnish club. That kind of environment, it's like a breeding ground for talent.
And he didn't just play around, he excelled. He climbed the ranks fast, even made his pro debut with TPS when he was still a teenager. And we all know the Finnish Liga is a serious league. Tons of NHL stars come from there.
It's a proving ground, no doubt. And scouts are always watching, looking for that next big thing. And what they saw in Kakko was something special. Size, skill, and that hockey sense. You know, that instinct you can't teach.
I've heard scouts talk about that, almost like he can see plays before they happen.
There's a story about a scout who was watching him, and Kakko anticipated a play like 2 steps ahead of everyone else on the ice. You can't coach that kind of intuition.
No wonder there was so much hype around him before the 2019 NHL draft. Everyone knew he was going to be a top pick.
He was the clear number 2. Teams were practically fighting over him.
Then draft day arrives, the lights, the cameras, and bam, the New York Rangers pick Kakko. Did it feel like destiny, headed for Broadway?
Oh, the Rangers definitely saw him as a cornerstone of their franchise. But here's the thing. Even when draft day is a dream come true, it's not always smooth sailing in the NHL. Not every top pick makes that transition easily.
So was it New York? The pressure of playing in that hockey-mad city? Or was it something else?
Well, think about it. The NHL is a whole different animal. The speed, the physicality, the constant travel. It takes time for rookies to adjust, even the most talented ones. And Kakko was just 18 when he was drafted. That's a lot to handle.
Yeah, I forget how young these guys are when they enter the league. It's easy to just see them as these established players.
Exactly. And on top of that, Kakko went through a bunch of coaching changes, constantly shifting lines. I read somewhere that he played on, get this, 5 different lines in his first season alone. That's got to be tough to build chemistry and consistency when you're always moving around.
That sounds incredibly frustrating. Makes you wonder if he ever really got a fair shot to settle into a role and show what he could do.
That's the big question, isn't it? You look at his stats, and yeah, he became a solid two-way forward, contributed offensively and defensively. But then there are those times when he just seemed to disappear like a ghost on the ice.
So is it a case of unfulfilled potential? Were the Rangers just not the right fit?
Tough to say for sure. Hockey's a team sport, and individual success often depends on the system, the chemistry, as much as talent.
And then, out of nowhere, the trade to Seattle. What triggered such a big move, and what do you think it means for Kakko's future?
Well, the Rangers wanted to shake things up, and the Kraken were eager to grab a young player with Kakko's skills. But honestly, I think this could be a major turning point for him.
You think so? Seattle being the place where he finally breaks out.
It's a totally different environment. The Kraken are a newer team, they're hungry to win, but there's not the same media craziness as New York. And their style of play fast, puck possession could be perfect for Kakko. He's amazing in transition, makes great plays in tight spaces. Seattle's system might let him do more of that.
So it's like hitting the reset button on his NHL career, a chance to start fresh.
That's a great way to put it. But before we get too excited, let's take a closer look at what he actually brings to the table. We know he's got size, he's got skill, but what else makes him such an interesting player? And where does he still need to improve? You know, one thing that really stands out about Kakko is his defensive play. He's not just about scoring goals.
Oh, yeah. I admit I hadn't really focused on that part of his game.
He's really solid in his own zone, back checks hard, uses his size well, and he's got a knack for breaking up passes. Even with the Rangers, his plus-minus was getting better every season.
So he's more well-rounded than people might realize.
Exactly. And that's good news for Seattle. They wanted a team that plays responsible defense, and Kakko fits right in. He's not going to be flashy every night, but he'll be a reliable guy in all 3 zones.
I see why the Kraken were so keen to get him. But let's be real. There are still some question marks. His scoring hasn't quite matched what everyone expected after Finland. What do you think's holding him back?
Part of it might be confidence. When you're a young guy in the NHL, it's easy to get in your own head when things aren't going well. And we've seen that with Kakko sometimes. He hesitates to shoot, like he's overthinking it.
Can a coach fix that? Or is it more of a mental thing he has to work through himself?
Probably a bit of both. Seattle's coaches, they'll need to encourage him to be more aggressive, trust his instincts, take those shots. But in the end, Kakko has to believe in himself, believe he can make a difference on offense.
This move to Seattle, it's a real test for him, isn't it? Can he bounce back from a tough time with the Rangers, step up and be a leader on a young team?
For sure. And this is where his international experience comes in. Winning gold at all those world championships, that's huge, especially at his age.
It's incredible, right? He's a hero back in Finland. I read a quote from one of his Finnish teammates. They called him a quiet leader, someone who leads by example and always steps up in big games.
Exactly. Playing for your country, it can really boost your confidence. And Kakko thrives in that setting. He seems to love representing Finland, playing with those other top guys, and with the Four Nations face-off coming up, we'll get to see him do that again.
I bet Finnish fans are pumped.
Okay.
But let's switch gears for a sec. We always talk about the on-ice stuff, but what about Kakko off the ice? What's he like as a person?
From what I've gathered, he's a pretty private guy, but very connected to his Finnish roots. Loves the outdoors, fishing, hiking, enjoying nature. And get this, he's a big fan of Finnish heavy metal.
No way. That's awesome. It's cool to see that side of him, Reminds us that these players, they're more than just athletes. They've got their own lives, their own interests.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of interesting stories, we can't ignore the challenges Kakko faces with his health. Type 1 diabetes and celiac disease. As a pro athlete, that can't be easy.
I was really struck by how open he is about it. He acknowledges it's tough, but he doesn't let it define him. There was this quote, I think he said, "It's just part of me, and I've learned to manage it." That's impressive, especially for someone so young.
It really is. It shows his discipline, his determination. Managing those conditions takes constant effort, strict diet, attention to detail. He has to be incredibly disciplined in every part of his life, and that carries over to the ice.
It makes you think. What we see during games, the pressure, it's just one piece of the puzzle. These guys are dealing with so much more, and they still compete at the highest level. It's inspiring.
It is. And we should recognize that. We get caught up in stats, highlights, wins and losses, but there's a human side to it all that we sometimes forget. With Kakko, his ability to overcome challenges on and off the ice, it speaks volumes about his character.
Okay, we've covered a lot. We've talked about Kakko's strengths and weaknesses as a player, his time with the Rangers, the potential of Seattle, his international success, and how he manages his health. But I still wonder, what does success even look like for him in this next chapter?
That's what we'll explore next. Is it about individual awards, winning championships, or something else altogether? Stick with us. So we've talked about Kaapo Kakko's talent, his journey, even his love for Finnish heavy metal. But what does success actually look like for him now in Seattle? Does it all boil down to just scoring goals?
That's the question, right? Is that the measure of success for him?
Goals and assists are important, no doubt. But for Kakko, I think success might be more about consistency. With the Rangers, we saw flashes of brilliance, but then he'd kind of fade away for stretches. In Seattle, it's got to be about being a force every night, someone the Kraken can rely on no matter what.
So less about chasing individual stats, more about being that key piece of the puzzle for a team that's trying to build something. But can the Kraken actually provide the right environment for him to do that?
That's what we have to see. From what I've observed, their coaching staff seems committed to developing their young players. And their style of play, fast, puck possession, that should really suit Kakko. He's at his best in transition, great vision on the ice.
It does sound like a system where he could thrive. But we talk about the mental side of things, too. Can he get that confidence back? The confidence he might have lost in New York.
I think a change of scenery can do wonders for a player's mindset. Seattle doesn't have that same intense pressure cooker feeling as New York. He can just focus on playing, building chemistry with his new teammates, hopefully get that swagger back.
I'm starting to feel optimistic about this, I have to admit. But let's be realistic. The Kraken are still a young team themselves. They're still figuring things out. There are going to be bumps in the road.
Oh, definitely. Ups and downs, for sure. But I think the Kraken have a unique opportunity here. They can build a culture of support, development. They're not carrying the weight of huge expectations like some other teams.
So Kakko can kind of grow with them, be a part of something as they evolve. But success in this league, it's not always a straight line, is it?
Rarely is. There are going to be challenges, tough opponents, nights where nothing goes right. He's going to make mistakes. But what matters is how he responds to those things. Can he learn from those tough moments? stay resilient, come back stronger.
So we're talking about more than just goals and assists here. This is about him growing as a person, as a leader, as someone who can handle the ups and downs that come with being a professional athlete.
Exactly. And I think everything we've talked about, his international experience, managing his health, even his taste in music, it all shows his character, his resilience, his ability to find balance and perspective.
You know, it's interesting. We started this deep dive wondering if Kaapo Kakko could live up to the expectations. And now I'm realizing that maybe those expectations need to be redefined.
That's what's great about these deep dives. We peel back the layers, uncover the complexities. We get to understand the person behind the stats.
So what's the takeaway here? We have a young, incredibly talented player with a fresh start and a team that seems invested in his success. It's a new chapter full of possibilities.
And at the end of the day, it's his story to write. We can analyze and speculate all we want, but it's up to Kaapo Kakko to define what success means to him.
And we'll be watching, excited to see how it all plays out. This has been a fascinating deep dive, folks. We encourage you to keep following Kakko's journey. Thanks for joining us.